Welcome to Lesson 4 of the Guitarist Toolkit. My name is Chris Amadeo, and today we're going to learn why certain chords sound good together. So this is often referred to as diatonic harmony, and it sort of plays off of our last lesson where we covered major and minor scale construction. Based off those scale patterns, we can actually get chords when we stack certain notes on top of each other. So you've probably heard the term triads before. We're going to look at that on a very basic level using open chords. So this video is going to be in the key of C major, and we're going to talk about all the chords that are diatonic to that key. So get comfortable, grab your guitar, let's get right into it. So starting in the key of C major, our tonic, or the one chord, will be C major. Now the tonic is often referred to as our home base, essentially, if you want to think about it that way. We're always trying to go back to C for this example. So if we think about the major scale, right, going back over that briefly, we have a C, a D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. Right, so we're going to build chords or triads off of each one of those root notes. So we're starting with C, and that's going to be C major. We're in the key of C major, so that makes sense, right? Now, just like there was a formula for constructing the major and minor scales, there's a simple formula that you can use to memorize to sort of recall this very quickly, even if you're not super comfortable with the theory yet. So that formula looks like this: major, minor, minor, major, major, minor. We have a diminished as our 7 chord, back to the 1. So just to go over that again, it's major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, back to your major. So oftentimes you'll hear people refer to a chord progression with numbers, right? Like a 1, 4, 5. And very simply, that just refers to which note in the scale you're talking about, and then you build a chord off of that. So for example, a common progression, a 1, 4, 5, would be 1 is C, right? If you go up to the 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4 is F, right? So F major, the 4 is a major chord. Right? If you go up to 5, 5 is G, right? The 5 is major. So that's how you have a 1, 4, 5. And that's a big way that chord progressions are constructed, or at least analyzed. There are a lot of common pairings and chord progressions that you'll find throughout all genres of music. Obviously that 1, 4, 5 is one of the most common. Let's talk about some of the other chords in the key, right? If we're moving diatonically, meaning just moving up through the scale, we can actually play the scale using chords, which is what I demonstrated before. So let's try that right now. We'll talk about the shapes first, and then we'll play it as a scale. I'll briefly go through the shapes so I don't take up too much time. Our first chord is a C, right? That's our 1 chord, it's a major. Now our 2 chord is a minor chord, that would be D minor. Our 3 chord is also minor, that's E minor. Our 4 chord is F major. 5 chord G major. 6 chord would be A minor. Our 7 diminished chord, which you're not going to see too often, especially if you're at this sort of beginner to, intermediate level. B diminished, back to C. So that's essentially moving up through the entire scale. Now these chords sound good together because it's still using those same 7 notes from the major scale. We're not using anything to deviate through there. Now the way the actual chords are constructed, we'll just kind of think about C major. It makes it easy to think about. You've probably heard people say something like a root, root 3, 5. What that basically means is if you take the C major scale and you play the root, you play the 3rd of the scale, so you skip the 2nd scale degree, go to the 3rd, which would be E. You skip the 4th scale degree and go to the 5th scale degree, which is G. You just created a C major chord, or a C major triad. That's C, skip the 2nd, E, skip the 4th, just like that. So you're just arpeggiating a C chord. right? And when we play an actual C major chord in the open position, you're playing those three notes. You're playing C, E, open G, that's our triad, and a C again on top. That's it. And that's the same for all of your chords here. When you're playing those open chords, even if you're playing the F chord, like the bar chord here, that E shape, right? You're still only playing three notes, F, A, and C, and you can check that as well as you go for each chord, sort of being aware of where those notes are. For the D minor, right, you have the open D, A, and F on top. Right, so it's always going to be three notes for these triads. What can be confusing at the beginning level, I think, is you're hitting, 5 to 6 strings sometimes. So it's sort of tricky. You think, oh, am I playing 5 different notes? No, you're only playing 3 notes of the triads. Some of them are just doubled up. The C chord right here, you have 2 roots. That's all that is. There's 2 C's. C on the bottom, C on the top. So experiment with different pairings of these chords. Like I mentioned before, C, F, and G, very popular, right? We can do C, A minor, F, and G as well. You can add in the 6th chord. I would definitely experiment with these chord progressions first before you start moving on to more abstract ones. So get comfortable with these transitions in this position, and I think it'll be really helpful when you're learning songs. This will sort of give you some sort of theoretical background to kind of understand the songs you're learning a little bit better. So I've referenced this F chord a couple times now. In the next video after this, I am going to cover proper bar chord technique. So if anyone's struggling with the E shape or A shape bar chords, we're definitely going to be covering those in a little bit more detail, and I'll show you some tips to play those a little bit easier. So in closing, make sure that you understand that formula and you can memorize it just like you did with the scales, right? Major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, and back to the major. So let's play through all these diatonic chords together in time. We'll do whole notes for each one. 1, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4, D minor, 3, 4, E minor, F major, 3, 4, G, our 5 chord, A minor, B diminished, right? Tricky to get to there, and back to C. So that's it for today's lesson. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. If you're having trouble with any of these concepts, remember you can always book a private lesson with me right on my website. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.